How did Arcturians terraform Earth and seed humanity by Gaia TV? I'ma like their video, like my video. Let's see what they talking about. I fuck with the Arcturians, so I'm gonna tell you if this shit facts or not. You
It
V.
took them some period to terraform the earth so that could become a living habitat. And during that process,
I will say that the Arcturians actually did help with terraforming Earth. The Inataka helped with like actually like shaping the Earth. Like you know how like they say that like Earth formed because like gravity and rock smashing together and that shit's really true. It's just that the Inataka were the ones manipulating those different forces like gravity and shit like that to make the Earth form. You feel me? And then once the Earth was formed, the Arcturians actually did help with terraforming that shit too. There actually is truth there. You feel me?
many things had to happen. So at one point, they understood that there was no tidal control over the planet. So we had chaotic weather, and
Right.
the oceans were they say the oceans were unruly, and so that led to the creation of the moon. And they had the moon brought in to control the climate and tides upon the earth. And so they talk
That
about, the fact that there were systems put in.
that's of a truth. I do have to look into that more though, because people say that the moon. See, I gotta go to the Akashic for this shit. You feel me? Because people say that the moon came from like a war, and that like some of the, like some people think that the moon came from a different planet getting blown up. Some people say that the moon came from a piece of the earth getting blown up. You feel me? I forget what scientists say. I think that scientists acknowledge that the moon came from the earth, like a piece of the earth got like blown off by an asteroid or some shit like that. I forgot what scientists say. You feel me? I just know that there is. I do know that the Arcturians actually did help with the formation of the moon. I think that they helped with um some of the earth getting blown off to form the moon, because there's like something with like how the Inataka was manipulating some natural forces, and then the Arcturians also did some things after the moon formed that kind of like helped it with controlling the tides. I don't fully get it. I never really cared to look into it too much. You feel me? That's the reason why I don't know much about it. But there is some truth there. You feel me? Facts.
In place to make this a living
I see.
habitat.
Okay.
Right. And they talked about the fact that, do we think oxygen just exists on the planet, and it isn't self-contained. So they talk about how that process has to be done so that we can maintain an oxygen
Yeah.
layer
Wow.
around that. I
Yeah.
mean, this is all complicated stuff.
Yes.
That part, yeah.
And so they're very proud, of what they were able to accomplish. But then it comes to the matter of, well, okay, you have this living environment, but something has to live in it. And so then the next process is how do you introduce species to an environment? So what they talk about is the fact that, star seeding is really a process in itself, because it's an ongoing process. They say what happened is, we brought different species here that we had already created as star seeds, right, to begin that process. And so they said we regionalized them, which means that they deposited them all over the
Sure.
earth,
I can
right?
see that. Yeah.
Right. And then let's see what happens.
What does she mean by that?
Can they survive? We do it all the time.
Because I will say this. You know how like we have like different animals on the earth, right? These animals are like smaller versions of the animals in the galaxy. You feel me? And like how you have like the Lyras, they're feline beings, right? You have like felines on Earth. You feel me? That have connections to Lyra, but they're like smaller versions of Lyra or of Lyrans. And when it comes to those animals did get seeded in a way by the Arcturians, because the Arcturians did place the genes of those beings in the planet. Like the beings themselves placed their genes in the planet, but it's like they did it with the help of Arctur. It's like imagine the Lyran's like, okay, boom, we're gonna add our DNA to the Earth. You feel me? The Arcturian says, "Bet, give me that DNA. Let's put it there." Okay, boom. You feel me? So if that's what she means, then facts. But if she like, that's what I'm like. What does she fully mean by that? Because I know that when it comes to like the animals on Earth, they were seated here with the help of the Arcturians who worked with the other star races that wanted those alien genes on the planet. You feel me? Now it wasn't like they just like fucking shipped the pig and put it on this shit. No, you feel me? It's like they put the genes in the planet so that way it could evolve naturally. That's why evolution theory and stuff like that, there is facts to it. You feel me? Because the genes were already in the planet, so they could naturally evolve to become how they did. You feel me?
But we have
Yeah.
fish tanks, we have zoos,
Yeah.
right? Same principle, right? But this started that process then, and then they said the process becomes self-sustaining. Okay, and indeed it has, because we have 9.2 billion people on this planet now, right? So yeah,
See, I think she's talking about humans right there, which is that's where I'm like, because there was already human, because Arcturians did help with seeding modern day humanity for a fact, but original humanity not as much. Original humanity. See, I made a video about this on my Patreon where I talk about Atlantis, Mu, and Lemuria, and I also mentioned this in my 4 quarters of galactic history PowerPoint, specifically part 4 of that PowerPoint, with how the Inataka that helped to make the Earth eventually lowered themselves to become like Inakata. Then those Inakata beings eventually mixed too much with the physical world and became too physical, and those beings also made their own group of beings and stuff like that, which eventually became the Mu people. And then Palladians, Lyrans, Andromedans, Arcturians, they were helping out the Mu people, which made the Lemurians and stuff like that. You feel me? The Arcturians did help with that and stuff like that. You feel me? But yeah, modern day humanity, there is a lot of Arcturian help with that. You feel me? But past humanity, like back during Atlantis Lemuria days, they didn't see them in the same way that we're seated on Earth now. You feel me?
yes, it's very successful, but that's not something that they looked at in the beginning. They didn't look at it and say, you know, we transform this environment and we expect this type of outcome. What they wanted to do was look at it and say, where will it go?
That's partially true, because some Arcturians knew exactly what the fuck was gonna happen, but some did want it to be like an experiment where they're like experimenting to find out what's gonna happen. You feel me? Like they had different thoughts of what could have happened, but they just wanted to see what really would happen.
What will it do? We are a very immature species compared to the rest of the universe. However, we're all
I wouldn't say compared to, because there are alien species in the universe which are way less advanced than us. People tend to only mention the more advanced, but there's also less advanced too.
so enterprising. And so I think that's really one of the things that they marveled at, is that they didn't realize that would be an outcome.
And to think that they were behind it the whole time.
Indeed, yeah.
I mean, what a great accomplishment.
Yeah. So I laugh when people say, you know, oh, you know, you're the products of apes, right?
Yeah.
Because the picture's really way bigger than that.
Oh.
Well, we kind of, in a way, we kind of are, but not. It's like niggas put
That, you know, that is just
just watch my video about Lemuria, Mu, and Atlantis that's on my Patreon inside my Galactic Origins. Or inside my Galactic Origins class collection slash playlist. Just watch that shit. You'll understand what the fuck I mean.
one process. And so, you know, they sit there and say, well, you know, we over time, we introduced new things to the environment.
Okay.
And so that becomes part of their watching, is to be able to look and see what is going to happen with this. Is it going to survive? You know, does it become a dominant species? Or, you know, is it subordinate to something else? Or, you know, does it have a symbiotic relationship? I mean, these are all important things for them to understand. And the thing is that they will admit that they are continually reaching out to us. They're telepathically connecting with us, you know. And I've had people, say to me all the time, sometimes I get these thoughts in my head, and I tell them, I say, it's probably an Arcturian, because that's what they're doing is they're reaching out to us. They're trying to say, we're conveying knowledge to you, right? And they're trying to get us to the point where we understand that, this is so important to us, right? Not only for our survival, but for our ability to be out in that greater cosmic community, right? You can't, you want to be able to go and say, welcome home, right? But in order to be welcomed home, you have to be desensitized to certain things, right? And if that desensitivity might be in the way others look or the way in which others behave, right? And that's where we have to be right now, is that we're able to accept those things and to be able to interact with it without having, paranoia or fear or any of those other things that we as humans tend to possess. And so this becomes very much part of
I gotta use the bathroom. I'll be right back, gang. I'll be back, gang.
their thing, is to be able to say, your history is very much a part of who you are. However, your history is continuing, and where are you going to go with it from here? And where I think we're going to go with it is we're going to move back out into that cosmic community.
How far do you know back in time of intelligent life here on planet Earth, like the Anunnaki, the Nephilim?
Okay. So, of course, this is according to their records, all right? So there's several instances where they talk about 150 million years ago. Okay, so we do things by epic age, okay?
Right.
So an epic age for them, though, is different. We're talking, 200-300 million years. That's an epic age for them, because they believe that they've been around for billions of years.
Wow.
Okay.
They have been.
But when did we
They're old as
see
fuck.
that? Okay, becomes the question, right? And so they say really at 150 million years, there's a recognition, right? Which means that we're capable then of recognizing that there's something that's akin to us. Okay, that there is an intelligence that is relatable to us. For Earth, I think that they're believing that it was, probably 150 million years ago that we started doing that. Now, when we come to the Anunnaki, okay, so it's an outsider, right? It's a species that came from another planet, and a very territorial species. They were the ones that led everybody to believe that they were gods because they had technologies, right? Technologies that others didn't have.
And they also genuinely do believe that they're like godlike beings because they are aligned with actual godlike beings, the Inataka, you feel me? Facts. Facts.
And they were perfectly happy holding that spot, right? Because what do we do when we have a god? We devote to it, we bow down to it, we give it whatever it needs, right? And for them, that was a perfect way to be on this planet, and they did a lot of genetic testing. Where did that come from, right? Because they recognized that, their own species was having problems. Their planet was dying a slow death. That could be the end. So what are we going to do to precipitate that we can continue on with our own species? So, of course, you start borrowing from other planets, trying to proliferate their own species by doing that. But like I say, they also had a mentality that was very warring, very possessing, and people began to recognize that that was problematic.
Yeah.
And so, we, all of the history about our floods and everything is all contributory to what the Anunnaki did. And it
I mentioned them coming in the Atlantean Mu and Lemurian PowerPoint. They came after this period of an ice age, and there was some beings. So like the Lemurians, right? The Lemurians were actually in inner Earth at this period of time because they were, when the ice age was happening, they were let to go to inner Earth. While there was certain beings on the surface, which were the Inataka beings that became physical human being, or the Inakata. So the Inataka became more like alien beings called the Inakata. But then those Inakata got too dense and became like physical humans that eventually forgot their origins and where they even came from. You feel me? And they were kind of left for dead during the Ice Age. You feel me? But some of them still lived. And after that Ice Age period, they eventually came. The Anunnaki. They eventually came and they saw those people there, and they mixed their genes with them, and they eventually started Atlantis. And the Atlanteans start beefing with Lemurians and stuff like that. And you start getting all the floods that start happening, and yeah.
At one point, they tried to wipe the species out on this planet. And fortunately, they were not successful, only because one of the Anunnaki had become enamored with the Terrans that he had. And so then he said, they have meaning to me. I can't just wipe them out because otherwise we would have been back to square one.
It sounds like she's on some. It sounds like she's on some minor Enlil and Enki shit. You feel me? And for those of you guys who don't know, that whole Enlil Enki story is not the shit that you hear from Zechariah Stitchin, bro. That shit don't be true like that, bro. Anunnaki really did come to the earth, and they really did mix their genes with humans. That stuff is true, but certain other shit isn't true. Watch my video that's on my Patreon about Atlantis, Moon, and Lemuria. You'll understand way more.
Wiped out and start again, right?
They still need those slaves.
They still needed their slaves, right? And so that becomes part of that history, is that, that's their contribution to the planet. And then they left, and of course they took most of what they put here with them because, we can't have the locals keeping it, right? Because there's no telling what they'll do with it. So a lot of that,
all that technology,
all that technology, right, including our pyramids, right?
Yeah.
And so, they're going to take the things that operate those away, and then you just have stone, right?
This was a decently accurate video. Not all the shit on Guy is accurate. I'll tell you that shit for a fact. But this video, there was a lot of accurate information inside here. So, yeah, I fuck with that. I'm going to end the video right here. I love you all. Catch my next video. Peace. The freak out. You feel me?